What you're often starting to see is what is being coined skill poisoning or tool drift. And that's where effectively you could set up something really cool, launch it on GitHub, and away everyone goes, uprates it, and it's amazing. And then you put a couple of lines in it, and it can do some crazy things that your business would never ever know. It's scary to think that everyone trusting these, I guess, new emerging AI experts with setting up their entire business brain with a whole lot of unknowns.
Hi, welcome to Slideshow. My name is Dave Hayward. I'm the founder of Europa Creative Partners, and I'm very excited about this episode's guest. Nyssa, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Hey guys, my name's Nyssa Waters, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Possibl AI, which is a services or full service agency for AI. So we focus on the AI niche. And also the CEO and co-founder of an incredible system that we've built called RCRT, which stands for Right Context, Right Time. So we're going to have a bit of a chat about both of those, but mostly about the future of AI and AI agents.
Yeah, that's a very pertinent thing. Agents are everywhere at the moment. And I guess one of the things I observe about the concept of AI agents is that the concept has almost been rendered inert by overuse. Sometimes people refer to AI agents, and I actually think they're talking about automation, for example, or something like that. In that context, what do you think AI agents really means, and especially this new generation of AI agents?
It's really fascinating you open with that because I've done a lot of thinking about this at a few events I've been to recently, in particular, big, large vendors talking about their agents that they're launching. And the fascinating part around agents in the way that a lot of people talk about it is really just some form of a AI conversation. They think about it as maybe some form of a workflow or an automation, maybe something that runs on autopilot or has lower use of human input. But agents is really giving an agent agency. So if we actually think about the tone of the word, it's about agency. So it's about them having the ability to actually functionally perform a task and do something without your human input. So I think the way we've kind of transitioned from chat or question and answer based conversations with AI all the way through to real autonomous agents is what we're stepping into now when we really do talk about agents.
Which I think kind of nicely brings us to slides here. So the name of the show is Slideshow, and the reason we do that is because it helps anchor the conversation around so we don't forget what we came here to talk about, but also because I think most people who've had any kind of career in business normally think in slides in a sort of a way, and so that's what we're here to do. So why don't we get into your deck?
Yeah, so I'm going to use that as a conversation point to actually start. So I when
Nice.
we when we
I
spoke
knew
the
this
other day,
coming.
yeah, you did. So I've been having a conversation with a few VCs and tech founders about this concept of, do you think in the future we'll be using email? Do you think in the future we'll be using Excel? Do you think in the future we'll be using slides? And I actually placed a pretty big bet when I was over in Utah recently with a big VC, and I said, without a doubt, in 5 years, probably even 2 years, you will not be opening your email. And he was like, no chance. I'll still be using email. No, you won't. So we placed a relatively hefty bet for my pocket anyway. And it's going to be really interesting to see how it plays out because I think in the tech sector, the theory at the moment is everyone's battling for the single pane of glass.
Yeah, and I think that's if you think about how software emerged and the concept of a systems integrator, the idea was always that we'd get all the software and then we'd all wire it up and it'd all work together. And then AI's come along and gone, actually, you don't need to link them up. We can just have this kind of layer over the top that just, it's this sort of semantic layer that kind of works through all of the software that sits underneath, right? And that's a concept I don't think it seems to have come into sort of the zeitgeist so quickly, but is still making its way around everyone's comfort levels at the moment.
Yeah, and it is about comfort because it's about what we've always done and actually changing our behaviors. And I think that between my two businesses, we've got our traditional business, and I'm talking, I laugh when I say traditional business, but it is our AI services business. That is being traditional now because effectively we're working with big customers to focus on outcomes that they can get out of AI. On the other side of our business, we're trying to rethink the entire way businesses should interact with AI. So the SaaS and software layer has been designed to effectively give us the ability to do things with our data at a user level. So people that don't understand technology, it's giving us access to different data sources, whether they be on the internet, whether they be internally, or whether they're in some sort of other cloud environment. I have a strong belief that most SaaS won't necessarily serve us in the future. And there's a few reasons for that. It's quite ineffective at the moment because you're effectively stitching together a whole lot of different data sources. You're stitching together a whole lot of different interfaces, and then you're adding an AI layer over the top of that, and you're paying for all of this, and likely integrators and consultants to work on all of those things. So the new view is definitely looking at how that AI becomes the one common source interacting with your data.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think a really good example of where it doesn't work well is before AI came along, you'd get a software platform and they've acquired another, at some point they've acquired another business, and they acquired another business in the background, and then suddenly it reminds me of the sort of family batch, or what we call in New Zealand the holiday home, where you start out with like it's just you as a couple, and then you have some kids, so you add on an extension, and then they have kids, and then but before you know it, this is sort of dog's dinner. I think probably the one that seems to be the best example is LinkedIn. LinkedIn's interface is just an absolute mess. There's Sales Navigator over here. They've got all these kind of different modules that don't talk to each other. We've priced that in. That's now what we expect with all these different platforms. And I think now the opportunity to disrupt that is, it's not an opportunity. It's this what's happening, isn't it?
Yeah. So I'll jump to the next slide just to kind of jump in. And I've already spoken a little bit about what we do, but we're effectively a technology provider. We've got amazing experience around the team. But what really this is leading to is, because we're agnostic and not many AI vendors or technology providers out there focus on the whole stack. So we work with Microsoft, we work with Google, we work with Anthropic. Because we're agnostic, we are able to really see the full stack. We're not just throwing ourselves into one different application. We're building across the stack. And when it came to really understanding our customers, there was a massive gap. And with a depth of understanding in AI and where AI is going, I'm not sure how many people understand the US government putting the block on Fable and the likes and Mythos, and why that was so pertinent at the time. We're starting to see the fact that AI can actually exploit very easily and quickly. And if you think about even 5 years ago, you were getting a whole lot of different threat actors doing a whole lot of different things to businesses for payments, right? This is going to become easier and easier. And when you've got APIs out there, when you've got MCPs out there, and when you've got a whole lot of different SaaS subscriptions, every single one of those is a unique vulnerability point. The data is going between these things, and what you're often starting to see is what is being coined skill poisoning or tool drift. And that's where effectively you could set up something really cool, launch it on GitHub, and away everyone goes, uprates it, and it's amazing. And then you put a couple of lines in it, and it can do some crazy things that your business would never ever know. It's scary to think that everyone trusting these, I guess, new emerging AI experts with setting up their entire business brain with a whole lot of unknowns. If you don't understand architecture and security, you don't understand version controlling, you don't understand source, you don't understand a whole lot of the different directions of data, you're putting yourself into a massive vulnerability in the world of AI autonomously going in and finding different vulnerabilities in the workflow that you may have.
You can see it. You can see even in just some really simple use cases how quickly it could go wrong. Because I went through a period when Cowork first came along, Claude Cowork, And I was putting markdown files in every folder and instructions and all that stuff. And the way that I was doing that was by actually getting in conversation with the AI to actually produce the markdown file. So it's producing its own homework, so to speak. Even then, there was stuff in there where, because it's generative AI and it's designed to make stuff and it makes assumptions and all that stuff, I was plucking out weird stuff all the time by going through and reviewing it. And as you say, then you could have people actually in all of this, like really dense amounts of content inside a markdown file, insert something entirely detrimental to what you're about. You'd never know necessarily.
The thing is, you've got, and look, I'm going to speak quite candidly here, you've got a whole lot of people that have seen the opportunity to monetize services across AI, right?
Yeah.
And kudos to them. It's a really good way of making money at the moment. Everyone's leaning in. But even when you start thinking about that hallucination that you're starting to see, you've got to understand the way in which AI is coming up with those answers, right? You've got to understand the layers. So people say, okay, I can use the Claude model now in Microsoft Copilot. You can, but the system prompt's actually different from the Anthropic system prompt. The orchestration's different. The tool selections and skill structures are different. So they are different. I was speaking to someone on our PR team recently, and I said, even when you're using Fable, do you know when Fable was actually programmed? So where that data point actually ended. And it was around January this year. So even though Fable has just been released, the data that it's been trained on is up until January 2026. And even with that, your localized data, so things that are relevant to us in certain countries, is only a drip in the ocean of the data that it has been trained on. And Anthropic's just settled, I understand, I think it's been approved, maybe not just settled, but a massive lawsuit around content and training of content. So when you start thinking about the limitations of content training these models, it's going to start to become a pretty fascinating world.
Oh, totally. I think we'll look back on this period as like the Wild West, where all content was game and they just consumed all of it. And then invariably the sort of the long arm of the law is catching up on them and they're having to cut deals with various people. So yeah, I guess the integrity of the training data is becoming a thing now.
It is, but then you've got this other layer on top now. And I would say that this is the fascinating part. So you've got skills and your MCP servers. So what's starting to happen now is people, you go on Facebook, and because I'm in this world, I'm in this echo chamber, right? You see these people selling, here's my GitHub, pay $10, download all my skills. Now that's so dangerous, happening all over the place.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I see it everywhere, and I see people who, frankly, I think we talked about this last time. I think marketers have a lot to answer for because we're good at selling, taking stuff to market, but now we can do a bit of building product as well at the same time. It's a dangerous combination, I think.
You've got coders building products, you've got marketers selling AI. It's a wild west out there. We kind of. And you only know your domain. So you don't know that something's wrong if you don't know the context of it. If you don't know, when I set up a prompt, it is so different from, I'm working with a marketing team. We've just launched a really cool marketing product recently. But the way they read my prompt, they were like, what is this language? And it's because it's completely different. You've got to be quite prescriptive. You've got to give examples. You've got to give it goals. And that's quite intimidating for a normal human, right? So if you're not in the tech world and you don't understand system prompts and fine tuning and all of these sorts of things, you start to just go, oh, I'll just download something. Oh, I've been told there's one at the moment that I posted about the ADHD skill. Give AI ADHD, and I have ADHD. So let's give my AI ADHD. But it's fascinating because I even wanted to just download it without reading it because I wanted to play with it. But then what does it give access to in that MD file or in that skill that I've just downloaded?
It's like you said. I think it's because the self-perpetuating nature of AI means that everything escalates much quicker than we've been capable of now, especially with the agent sides of it, because they've gone beyond a tool now and they're actually actively working when we're not. So yeah.
Yeah, and again, going back to this, there's these day-long training courses that I'm seeing businesses being advertised to around setting up their Claude brain and connecting tools. And what you're doing is you might connect your Xero into your Claude as an example and allow it to raise invoices. And that's beautiful. But then you go and download a skill that also has access to your Xero, that has
Mm.
the ability to be poisoned, right? And that could then in turn raise a whole lot of invoices precariously. So there's a fascinating level of sort of, you've got your SaaS, you've got your AI, and then you've got all of these connections that are happening between them. And we kind of go, what is an agent? An agent is actually taking away the act of the human in the loop. And a lot of there still are, generally speaking, human in the loop checkpoints if you build it correctly, but it's giving agency to perform that task. Now, the agents, they trust things. I think this was actually the next slide, or maybe the one after. They trust things that you'll never see. So effectively, you are giving it access to a whole lot of different things, and then you're telling it to do it in a certain way. And if you haven't properly understood the way in which it's being told, it's got access to a number of different things in your data. Where is it going? What MCP server are you connecting it to? It can become quite messy, and you don't know where your data is or where it's going. And look, that's not new. I'm working on a project at the moment, and I had to judge some things. And in the process of judging, I was able to download a whole lot of very confidential customer information. So I did it because it was going to make my job easier. Oh crap! I shouldn't have access to this. I definitely shouldn't be putting it on my cloud.
Yeah.
So these are going to become more and more prominent in this agent world.
Do you think a lot of it is because people are just simply unaware of the capabilities of it? Is that the reason the governance is struggling around it is because people just don't understand fully what they're capable of now?
Yeah, I think that you've got people excited about a technology and what it can do. And it's freaking cool when it works, right? For the ability to streamline almost anything that you can do. And I don't think they understand the risk posture. And look, particularly in New Zealand and Australia, New Zealand even more, a little bit less conscious of data risk because the policies for data aren't, they are in some other countries. I think it's just people are excited and they see a really easy way of getting things done until it isn't. And like, I'm obviously I'm an AI girl, like I'm absolutely on the bandwagon, but I also think that you need to establish the right, what I call scaffolding, to be able to ensure that you don't have the challenges that might come down. And it's always going to be a risk, but you can set it up so it's actually safe and secure. Already spoken a little bit about what it does and how it connects to a whole lot
Yeah.
of different things. And we're already starting to see almost every human, like you were talking about setting up your own co-work sort of and how you do that. But we're also seeing these other things that almost every business uses. And we've been building our platform for around 18 months now. And it's got to a point where we're now in the process of getting rid of every SaaS. So that the goal for me is to get rid of every SaaS license I possibly can. And we have 42 SaaS subscriptions in our company at the moment. Some of them, like collaboration, like for me, Google, won't be being replaced.
Yeah.
But the majority, around 90%, we can replace within our own system. And the reason why that's actually really important, and I'll skip ahead a couple of slides here, is generally speaking, you're seeing, if I use HubSpot or Salesforce, so a CRM, for example, it has its own front end, which you interact with. It has its own database. It has its own hosting. It has its own billing services, everything like that. Every SaaS application that you have has a component of your data in it. Okay. Yeah. And then all of those systems, as you say, the dream of SaaS was to have this business operating system. And it's never been the case because you've got one niche doing well here, one doing well here, and even more in the AI lens because you've got, like for me, Higgsfield AI doing video, you've got tools, you've got people building things that have just been generated on Lovable and selling them. Like it's a wild west out there now. So you're starting to see so many different positive niche tools coming up. But the reality here is there's vulnerabilities across each and every one of those. There's a inability to leverage the data in the right way because you do have it fragmented in so many different data sources. And then effectively you're not owning that connection to your data either. So it's held somewhere else. So what we've been working on is how we can build a infrastructure layer, a backend layer that will effectively become the source of truth across all. And then our customers build their own SaaS platforms on top of it. So I've been paying for HubSpot for a while, and I hate it almost as much as I hated Salesforce. And I say that because it's expensive, but it's actually more about, it's so confusing.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
People pay for HubSpot consultants to go in and set up their HubSpot because ultimately I'm only using 10% of what the platform is capable of, and everything gets bolted on because it's a new feature request. So as a salesperson, I know my context better than anything. My emails know the context better than anything. So why am I kind of using a tool that's been built for everybody when I can, or a SaaS application that's built for everybody, when I would prefer it to be in my color, in my language, and built for me? And that's what we have built, is the ability to connect up the imperative data sources. So email is a good example of that. Banks are a good example of that. And then build your own SaaSes on top of that. So you're effectively building it in the way that you want as an individual or as a business. And then giving it governance and control over the top.
Because there's this, I don't know if you ever got into Roy Baumeister, that the sort of the science of decision making and how you can get decision fatigue from making complex decisions and that affecting you. And I think about it sometimes with software design, because when you have this bloated software that is irrelevant to what you might have a business with very specific needs, but you get a general purpose app and it has all this other stuff that's been made for everyone else, and then it's configured for you. It becomes a bit like when you go to the supermarket and you have to buy mayonnaise, and there's all this, the tyranny of choice, right? When often the businesses that are really successful are the ones that actually are really clear about what they're about and what they're not about. And that's so if I'm understanding you right, what this allows you to do is actually build things that are sleek, that are pretty much exactly what you want and nothing else.
It's kind of the ability to amend as you go as well, right? So me as a user, I have a completely different perspective than an engineer does. And if you think about how SaaS has been constructed in the past, right, you've got an opportunity, a business opportunity, say, let's just say a CRM. You've got a user. Now that user might go, hey, Mr. Business Customer, can you go and build this for me? And then that goes, so a business partner, tech business partner, whatever, to an engineer. So there's a layer of being lost in translation. And I even think about my own engineering team. When I went to them with an idea of something I wanted them to build, by the time it had gone through me into their brain, it was not what I wanted them to write.
Yeah.
So the idea of building, and we've seen this with vibe coding already, the idea of building to your taste, to your vision, and then amending it as you go is really, really amazing. But what we've built, and I'm going to see if I've put this here. Yep. So what we've built is effectively the ability to have the data and the connections and the authorization all within one system, but being able to have a organizational level, a personal workspace level. So your governance layer, your organization sets kind of the context of what the business says, but you set up exactly what you want. So it's like vibe coding, one operational system for me, for Nyssa, and what my purpose is, because I have a fundamental belief that we're not going to have jobs anymore or tasks, we're going to have purpose. And it was Jensen Huang who mentioned it around engineers, and he alluded to the fact that him as a CEO, his tasks are picking up the phone, presenting. It's not what his job title is. His purpose is to grow the business, right?
Yeah.
Lead the business and grow the business. So we've moved our entire team to being purpose-led, not task-led.
Oh, I love that. That's amazing. Yeah, because I think that's also in a very increasingly complex business environment, that kind of gives people agency to actually do what is required. Because one of the benefits of AI and generative AI is infinite customization, but one of the challenges of it is infinite customization, right?
It's that governance layer of kind of mandating at an organization level, sort of what and who we are and what we subscribe to, but you don't want to ever take away the personal approach, because and my fundamental belief is I hope AI can restore us to being human again. I think we've all turned into little machines sitting behind a computer. We're not made for mass data analysis. That's our brains aren't computers. We're not made for sending emails back and forth. Really, all we're doing that for is for a capture of whatever has happened at that point in time. So I think that if we can decrease what I call the pivot, which is the cut, copy, paste. I'm taking it from this data source to this data source, or I'm logging into 10 different applications at any one point in time, and kind of have one control plane, one operating system that is suited to my language, my context, I'm a mum, I'm a business owner, I have a whole lot of partners that I work with, I present a lot. So there's so many different facets of who Nyssa is. One SaaS could never ever capture who I am at my core, at my person. So the intention here is that you have your personal operating system, but it is, when it's work related, it is grounded in the work related truth. It's a different way of thinking about things, and we're in our journey. We've only launched in the last couple of weeks. So we're now setting up a lot for our customers, and it's exciting sort of onboarding customers into a new sort of way of thinking about things. But just going kind of put vibe coding in with the ability for agents to perform tasks for you and being able to set up something that's already connected. It's pretty cool. It's pretty exciting
Oh,
to
no, it's
see.
amazing. When you get your first, like I said, there's the stuff I do with clients, and then there's the personal stuff, which is impossible not to start playing around with it for your personal life and things like that with AI. I find myself going down these kind of rabbit holes where I go to do something simple, and then I realize it's a repetitive task, and then I realize that I can automate it or turn it into an agent or whatever. And then I find I've suddenly lost 6 hours because I've been building, like, it would have taken to actually do the task in the first place, probably would only take me half an hour. But the fact is, I now automated it, so I've saved myself time in the long term, I guess, is the logic.
So the intention here is that you don't automate it, you don't set it up, because the AI will pick up that it is a task that you do a lot. So it will
Right.
automate it. So we're talking about it being predictive in the sense that it already knows. It's got all your context. If you've got all your data and your context in one place and you have the right context tooling, and that's probably the biggest value proposition of what we've built, but it's quite technical, it's the way in which our engineering team have built our context engineering system in the back end to be able to search very quickly through a user's context to find out what is relevant to that query or that situation, but also proactively go, okay, these are some things that you're doing, we're just going to do it, or do you allow us to do it? So it's more predictive in that manner, or proactive is the right word.
Who are your customers? What's the sort of typical profile of a customer? What sort of state are they in when they engage with you?
Yeah, so on the services side, it's kind of everything, because it is kind of more the traditional AI agency side. But where we're seeing success on the RCRT side is anyone who has more than 2 or 3 SaaS subscriptions that are frustrated with sort of the amount of tabs that you have open and kind of the inability to connect. I've got one customer that pays around 30K a year for HubSpot. And then I think they've got 100K in a construction management software. They've got just SaaS everywhere, right? You've got your AI subscriptions like Claude. Actually, these guys have all of them. You've got a whole lot of Microsoft tooling. So effectively a whole lot of different systems that are all disconnected. And what we can effectively go in and go, okay, so for one fixed monthly cost, you can use it as much as you like, build as many different applications on top of it as you like, and go gangbusters. It's all based around secure data access and governance. But you have the ability to see the data that you have access to very, very simply. So rather than going, oh my God, here's a dashboard of a whole lot of crap, I don't understand how I'm going to find out what I need, I can just go, so are we going to make our target this month?
Man, so just natural language, as you would ask yeah.
Yeah, but we also see similar things starting to happen on the Anthropic slides. I'm not sure if you know much around just-in-time UI, but it's effectively building a SaaS as you're talking to it. So similar interface, which has been defined as you're speaking to the AI. So we leverage just-in-time UI for a lot of that.
Yeah. And so a customer might, I guess the underlying issue that the customer has really is that there's the tools themselves are actually holding them back from the amount of friction that's involved with having all these different tools is actually not giving them a clear understanding of where their business is at any given time. And it's actually meaning that decision making is maybe flawed because they're not informed by the right data at the right time or the whole context of what they're doing. So what you're essentially giving people is the ability to be quite really agile, quite nimble businesses compared to someone who's not in that environment, right?
So the example I use in my own business is I'm a CEO, so I'll go out. I'm kind of light touch with my customers, right? Like
Yeah,
I'll go in and out just
yeah,
to if there's anything going on. Um, but I'm not across all the innate details. So what tends to happen is you get a salesperson, right, go out and they do 4 or 5 different sales meetings. Now, all of those meetings are recorded, so they go into
mm,
transcription,
mm,
and they might sit on our drive or they might sit within Fireflies or wherever that's going. And then maybe that's used to generate a proposal. I'm thinking I'm maybe a year ago, not how it is
yeah,
today, because it's
yeah,
completely transformed this. Those interactions, you then go into contract stage, fine, contracts are automated, whatever. But then you go into engineers. So you've got a handoff between your salespeople through to engineers. And one thing I was starting to grapple with about a year ago was, hey, this is really frustrating because the engineers don't understand the same language that the salespeople are talking. The customer's going, but I thought I said that. So you get this little, in particular, not an arm wrestle, but has the same context. So if you have the same system, all of that context is there. So the engineer can go, hey, did Nyssa say this? Or was this discussed in the sales meetings? Yes or no? And it just means that we're all on the same really fair page because they have all of the transcriptions, they have all of the emails in the same way that it helps the project manager to be able to understand all of the context. And also, we're not always right, but we just don't always understand. Tell me this in engineering language, tell me this in CEO language, because I tell you what, I don't understand half of the CI/CD lines that my engineers
yeah,
are doing. So
yeah.
you need that context together to be able to get the right outcome out of it. And at the moment, it's being stuck together via various servers and others, but that is only on a client initiating that or you initiating it, rather than it being part of the language of the application and the agents, because they're a lot more powerful at that layer.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's two thoughts on that. One is a while back, I did a demo with Ed Ortega which was an AI tool. I think it's called Pencil. It's just a simple demo. And what we were looking at is this kind of really simple innovation they had, which is that instead of building, you can design wireframes and designs for websites, but you design it in code, not in vector.
Right.
And it's basically the same as Figma, but instead of the designs being in Figma, the designer having to hand off to the developer, it's already encoded in code, so the developer gets it. And what I found interesting about that concept was that both the developer and the designer are suddenly talking in the same language. So there's a kind of beautiful side to that. And then on the other side, on a more personal side, I think the opportunity with AI, there's a lot of moaning about AI slop and people using communications and for that. But
Yeah.
one thing I do think is actually being good at reading and writing is not necessarily a sign of intelligence, right? It's a thing. So AI is actually giving us the opportunity for people who are potentially neurodiverse or who are phenomenally good at their jobs or have really good insight to actually be able to communicate it to the outside world. I think that's something that people are really missing at the moment.
Yeah, I'd say 80% of my team are neurodiverse. We have a couple of people on my team who have dyslexia. It is a fascinating one in that we can now take the way we think and ask it to be interpreted into a better way of speaking. Even just speaking to my son sometimes, I want to explain innovation to my 7-year-old son.
Yeah,
Just stop complaining about something, start innovating is my theory now. It's like, you can
yeah,
solve this problem, go and figure it out, which, yeah, is fun. But there's so much capability that people can learn now very simply and easily. But again, we've got to build it properly. So if you don't have context, you can quite easily say or do the wrong thing. So it's the same for agents. If an agent doesn't have the right context, it will do things that maybe it shouldn't be doing.
yeah. Yeah, because it's like a human. If the human's working off the wrong information, it's going to, yeah, you don't have the whole context, so therefore you make decisions that are incorrect based on the context you do have.
And look, sometimes I can have bad days, as we all do. And
Mm.
I had a session with my business partner, and we had maybe a debate for about an hour, and we actually realized we're saying the same thing.
Yeah.
And I giggled because we've built this tool called Right Context, Right Time. And I laughed and I said, I think we were just doing wrong context, wrong time. We need to
Yeah.
go and make our AI have this conversation for us before we get into
Yeah,
it.
totally. We'll get our AIs to talk to each other and then we can maybe chat. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
resolve it for us, guys, because we're actually saying the exact same thing, but it was just we didn't have the same context as each other, which is
Yeah.
hilarious.
Yeah, it is. It is. And I like what you said then because I go through, I don't know, I'm quite a moody individual. And so I go through, I feel like I go through days where I'm like, this technology is unbelievable. It's going to transform everything. And then I have days where, oh my God, we're going to have no jobs and it's going to wipe us out and all that stuff. None of that stops me because I think those are both incorrect. I think the best way to look at it is nothing is ever as good or as bad as you think it's going to be. This stuff's just in the middle.
And I was listening to one of the Claude Code teams talking about who we hire, and we had a big discussion in my team meeting yesterday around we need new people, but we need a skill that doesn't exist in our team yet. And it's somewhere kind of a deployed engineer, but a customer version of that. And
Yeah.
what this is about is how do you bridge the gap between people and the technology, and how do you build rapidly? So we're finding that our team are building 20 times faster than what they used to do on our system.
Yeah.
And out of the back of that, our traditional engineers can't keep up. So
Right.
what we need now is more someone that can explain the challenges or the requirements in a engineering language to be able to build as fast as the team can build. So it's pretty wild because you've got people doing things the traditional way and kind of having a reluctance to adopt the new technologies, going up against people that have really embraced it. And there's a massive level of frustration there as well. But the roles are going to be different. And the Claude Code guys were going, now our project managers are coding because code is easy. We can code now with the use of technology. Just, hey, we used to write a letter and have a pigeon fly it across the world. Email made things a lot easier for letters to be sent to one another because that's basically what it is. So the whole world changes around that. It's the same with code now. Anyone can code.
Yeah, and I think in engineers, the role of the engineer has changed to being almost more of a strategist or a designer in a way. I'm not an engineer, but I work with them a fair bit. Is that it's no longer about generating the code. It's actually more about the cultivation and structure around it. That seems to be the key, right? Or have I got that wrong?
No, no, you are right. It's about setting up the scaffolding to be able to enable your agents to be successful. So you're effectively becoming a manager of agents, but you need
Mm,
to actually set them up correctly. And
mm,
I kind of talk about back in the day we used to write the book, right? Some people write the book, and writing the book takes you 2 years to write a book. So all of these engineers used to do the code. They used to write the book. Now they're having to get used to at a basic level, the middle engineers are reading the book. So they might have one agent that is writing their code and it's a back and forth. The next level is you've got a whole lot of different books and they're being put into a Kindle and now they're being put onto one of those apps which basically summarize the book for you in 10 minutes and say the pros and cons of the book and here's what you should do about it. So you're kind of going through those four different levels of, okay, what is the fastest way to read a book? You can now read a book in 10 minutes based on one of those apps, right? You're getting the best part of the book out of it, or the worst, if that is the
yeah,
case.
yeah. It's interesting because in the sort of design thinking days, they always talked about the T-shaped individual, right? And I think that that idea now that I find that seems like AI has driven us into two areas at the same time. One is that there's the rise of the generalists. So generalists now are, especially for likes of you and me with neurodiverse, where we have a range of associated stuff, we can get enough deep domain specialization to be dangerous, right? But at the
Yeah.
same time, there's a last mile thing with AI, which is that it will get you 80% of the way there quite quickly. But the
Mhm.
last 20%, which is really where human discernment can be, or 10% or 5%, but whatever it is, that human discernment becomes incredibly important for all those reasons that it's not hard to build an app now, but it is difficult to have an app that is fully secure, production ready, all those
Yeah.
kinds of things, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely spot on. And that's, I think, where I think this whole world of consulting is going to become a lot stronger, particularly in our space. So I sat down with a customer yesterday, and he's grappling with whether he gets a chief of AI. And my view on that, and maybe I'm biased because we do have a consulting services side of our business,
Yeah.
is the second that you hire someone and they're 100% in it, they're working for your business, they don't get exposure to the rest of what's going on in the world, and you start
Yeah.
to become very tunnel visioned.
Mm.
So I think you'll start to see this rise of more independent specialists. So, like yourself, right? You can go in and help tune multiple different companies because you have that niche area of specialization that is required to get them that 100%. They know how to get themselves and talk themselves into a certain, they know they need certain services, but they need someone else to push them into the specialized perfection range. Otherwise, they're just going to be half-assed, average.
Or you really have this symphony of sort of unfinished symphonies everywhere. That's what I feel. The other thing that I'm finding, when you get, say, a brief or a piece of engagement now, people have lost their mind with AI, and you get like a 15-page brief or something that most of it's nonsensical. And then what's ironic about that is then you have to take that and put it in your LLM and get it to tune it right down. And it's this kind of, you could very easily understand how people lose the sense of what the purpose of the engagement actually is, because you've just drowned them in like all this content, because the barrier to produce the content is zero now.
I tell people this quite a bit. I don't use AI for emails.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. Yeah.
And it's for the very reason that if it's a document, if it's a proposal, if it's something like that, I'll use it for the formatting. But this back and forth that we're starting to get with AI, I was doing some negotiation with a VC, and you could just tell that we were both just doing that. And it was
Right.
like, tell me how I should negotiate this. Tell me, and he's coming back, tell me a counter for that. And it's like, may as well just chucked it into AI and say, and go and fight with each other until you come to an end conclusion. Actually, I do have a team of agents that if I've got a particularly challenging situation, I'll chuck it to a team of agents to go and argue about, which is good fun to watch.
Nice.
Yeah, no, absolutely agree. And this is just AI slop because it's just generalized information and knowledge that is probably based on someone's training in the US, particularly if you haven't prompted it correctly or asked it for, if it's a law situation, which happens a lot, for different precedents. And this is based on this jurisdiction at this time of, you've got to be a lot more complicated than what people are tending to be, or a lot more in depth is probably the right word.
I also don't blame people as well, because some of the stuff that it's doing is like producing a contract. I don't know many people that like doing that sort of work. It's quite boring. So it's like, do you know what I mean? It's, oh, okay, I'll just give it to the AI, I get it to write it. That's good enough.
But if you don't set it up correctly, and again,
Yeah.
I've fallen into this hole as well, where then your payment terms are incorrect because I've used whatever it is. And
Yeah.
you've got really lazy with checking all of the information because you're running around a million miles an hour. And you need to set up, and we spend a lot of time setting up what our company standards are and the gates in which, if it's not doing that, the agent needs to come to you and ask. But yeah, it does make things easy. Proposal generation is my favorite one because I just want it to be consistent each and every time. And as a salesperson, you know that every single time you do a proposal, it changes about 10% because the customer's asking for something that you don't usually do. So nothing's ever standard. So it's kind of challenging managing those sort of ad hoc requests as well. But that's
I also think.
Sorry.
Go. I was going to say, I also, having one of the reasons because obviously I spent a long time in agency land and pitch decks, and that's where slideshow largely came from. I also think if you don't like massively cringe about a deck that you put out a year ago, there's something wrong. I'm always, do you know what I mean? It's like you go, God, I actually went in with that, and it's sort of.
Yeah, and it's only going to get better with video and image generation and some of the other things that are starting to come out. Again, slide decks. What are we trying to do with slide deck? We're trying to convey a topic of sorts, right? But sometimes, like even this, I'm sitting here having a chat to you, which is probably far more interesting than the slide deck that I have put together for this conversation. Because the reality is what you're interested in and what I'm interested in and what we're trying to get out of this as humans naturally flows. I love the bouncy conversations because you come to new conclusions, and I don't think I'm always right. And one of the big subjects on AI that I talk to and really have to push, particularly my younger engineers on, is you need to unlearn. You need to stop pretending like you know everything, because in this day and age you don't. And my slide deck that I've built today, and I said this to you the other day, some of these things are out of date already because we've just had ChatGPT launch a new model, and that completely changes my perspective and my opinion on some things. The conversation's kind of good to have something to discuss, but I think for a time there we really relied on slide decks, and we really relied on them to be, even this has too many words as far as I'm concerned, but we lost the conversation. And I think that's what humans are good at, understanding each other and understanding the conversation.
So your business is 18 months old. One of the things that a good business has is good structure, right? But it feels to me like you're building the plane as you fly, or whatever it's called. But your field is the most fastest moving, most disrupted field in that. How do you reconcile that with, how did you scale the company so quickly in that environment? Are you just used to pivoting and dealing with large amounts of uncertainty, or what's your how have you managed to do this?
Good question. From my perspective, this has kind of always been my thing. So I started my career sort of in telco and doing mobiles, and then moving into mobile data and IoT, and then into mobile apps, and then into cloud. And I worked for Google for a number of years. And I think Google was a big turning point for me in going, anything's possible. And oh, wow, what a way to wrap. No, anything is possible.
Nice.
With time and money. And I made that comment around what I was talking to my son about: stop complaining, start innovating. I think my whole career has been around, there must be a better way of doing this. And I think if we're not completely always pushing ourselves to say there has to be a better way, then that's just the nature of humans, really. And now AI enables us to do things a better way in a lot of ways. So we've got to do it in the right way, but there's often a better way of doing things. I like to push the team into going, come on, find a way around this. We had one situation recently, and the engineers came and said, oh, we can't do this. And I said, I'm sure we can find a way. You always do. You just have to push and push. And I kind of go back to that, the SaaS thing, and everyone going, no way email, no way Excel. In particular, everyone freaks out about my thoughts that Excel won't exist. And I go, what do you use Excel for? Oh, to figure out the numbers. And I'm like, to analyze something or to do something. Humans aren't good at that. Computers are. So why don't you let the computer do that? Just ask a natural language question. And it's like, all it is an interface to the data. Now we face to the data, and it's getting more and more accurate. So we need to really look at what that actually means. So if you can talk to the data, talk to the data. Ask it the questions directly, rather than looking at a whole lot of dashboards or a whole lot of pivot tables. What is a competitive strategy that I can use? If it's connected to all of your context and the internet, it can come up with better ideas than sitting over a spreadsheet can. Or you've got access to my Xero, build me a cash flow forecast.
Exactly. On the spot. Where are we this month? Tell me about Backend as a service, because this is a new term to me.
Yeah, so look, it's actually probably not new, because I'm assuming you've vibe coded something in the past and connected it up to Superbase.
Yeah.
So what you're effectively doing is giving it access to a database service. You've kind of got the cloud, you've got databases that sit on top of the cloud, you've got run and compute that sits on top of that, you've got authentication and hosting. So rather than the SaaS provider connecting all of those things for you and doing all of those things for you, you will have your backend as a service and build on top of it. So it's the reverse way of thinking, in that the backend, so by backend I mean all of those things that I just spoke about, is the core. It's the absolute core of everything. And then you build on top, as opposed to the front end, connecting into different database and different back-end services for each and every SaaS application. And that is how we can enable it to be connected with context in a much more powerful way, because you know that everything you're seeing up here has access to all of the context, as opposed to fragmentation and in the nature of that, security vulnerabilities as well. So effectively what we're saying is, for the agentic era, we were never able to, and the thesis of my chief of AI was, everything I want to build, it won't work because the backends are all fragmented. So what I need to do is build a core backend as a service that is built for the agentic era. It has the right context engineering built into it. It has the right whole lot of nerdy technical things I don't understand, but it runs fast, it's cheaper, it uses less tokens, but then we build the services on top of that, and they're customized and they are proactive in the way that you're doing things. So the example, I pay around $1,500 a month, or I paid around $1,500 a month for Jira. I'm assuming you know what Jira is, right?
Yes.
So I also have HubSpot. I also have all these other ones. I set the team out on their first mission of destroying Jira for me.
Yeah.
And the reason being is I hate that particularly the DevOps engineers spend so much time updating Jira tickets that the BAs will write sprints and all of these sorts of bits and pieces. We now build what would be built in 20 days in a day. Now, you can't have it working like that. It needs to be
No.
fully agentic. So when the
Yeah.
guys are doing it, the project management tooling that we've got is being updated automatically. The agent's
Yeah.
doing it. We don't need the engineers doing that stuff. So they can just talk to their assistant on the side and say, I've got rid of these things, I've shipped this, I've done that, and it all happens. So we're effectively being able to really rapidly. So we've just built a entire end-to-end mobile app on both iOS, Android, and web, and we've built it with full agentic capabilities in 6 weeks, and it is going live in a week. It is a full real estate application, which is going to be mind-blowing. And it's got computer vision locked in, it's got safety and security all completely loaded. So payments, conversational AI, and we've built that in 6 weeks, which would have taken 6 to 12 months in the old days.
Damn. And I imagine a lot of money as well. And yeah. And the highway, the sort of employment highway is littered with the careers of IT teams that, did a big digital transformation that didn't work, mostly over a long period of time. So one of the great things about doing it that quickly is that you can see if it's working or not pretty fast, right?
I say to my customers, and it's funny, I had this conversation with our CEO recently. I'm like, I'm not going to do a 3-year strategy. He's like, yeah, but I want to do a 2030. I'm like, have a North Star for your 2030, and I'm okay
Yeah.
with that. But I'm not going to build anything longer than a 12-month strategy for AI.
Nice. Wow.
Uh,
It is incredible, isn't it?
can't, because if I actually stand by my belief, which is that in the next couple of years, we'll have a single pane of glass, which is personalized to ourselves and has full context awareness and is proactive, which I hand on heart do. Some of the projects that I'm even working on right now, I don't necessarily think will survive the next 24 months. So
No.
you've got to prototype, you've got to build quickly, you've got to get really quick ROI on AI projects, because the next best thing is going to come out and Claude's probably going to do it, or RCRT will definitely do it.
Yeah.
Even ourselves, we sit there and we go, we need to act fast on this because we're going up against some of these big labs and some of the things that they can build. Whilst we stand by our IP, we are very aware of the fact that what we're doing, I'm sure others are thinking about. But it's an exciting time to be in business, and you have to work so fast, and luckily AI enables you to.
One of the great things about this is your moat used to be, we can create this thing that no one else can create, right? That's gone now. So the value that you can add to customers will be there is actually your ability to innovate and act quickly. That's actually the thing now, not the actual building of the thing itself is the issue. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, I go back to that whole, we used to have tasks, and like they used to have tasks, and that's why Jira doesn't really work anymore, because it's your purpose. You need to solve this problem. I don't care about all the other things that go along, but it's not about going slow. You can't get things perfect anymore, and you've got to get rid of that. Like, absolutely, RCRT is not perfect at this stage. It ever will be, because we're
No.
going to be pushing the boundaries of what's normal or what is here and now. And that means that you've got a constant adaptation. I look at Xero and I love what they've done around asking for their customers to submit features and then prioritize them, right? Because it kind of gamifies being one of their customers. And you just go, when it was launched, it was a shell of what it is today. You've got an opportunity to keep improving, always.
One thing I've been meaning to ask you is, what did you end up saying to is it your son about What did you actually define innovation to him? How did you define that?
Oh God, that was a few months ago. From my perspective with Jackson, he can be a little bit, he can cut corners, and I think all kids can, right? But it's this whole, and maybe it's a generational thing of, I don't know how to do that. And it's like, let's figure it out. So for him, it was, he spent a whole lot of money on we let the kids, and this is probably something some people might get upset about, but we let the kids use MetaQuest, so virtual reality. And he spent about $1,000 on Gorilla coins. And anyway, I obviously gave him a bit of crap over that. And then he was like, I want to do this, I want to do that. So I was like, how can you do that? He's like, I don't know. So we ended up getting into a point where, how about we build our own game?
Yeah,
And
nice.
how about maybe you're the one who could be charging other people coins, and maybe you'll learn a skill that's going to be really valuable in the meantime. So we started understanding a little bit around, for him, it was talking to AI and imagining. So we did a spaceship game, and he wanted monsters, and then we thought about the big bosses to fight, but just making him be creative around solving that problem with, maybe there's a different way of playing a game. It's building it yourself and not spending $1,000 on, what are they? Shiny rocks. Shiny rocks. Spend $1,000 on shiny rocks. Virtual shiny rocks, not even real ones.
Oh my God, that's amazing. That's absolutely amazing. Actually, this whole thing, talking to you, is actually, I've just had eye surgery, obviously, and I've spent a week in a dark room listening to loads of podcasts, unable to look at any screens. I was bored out of my tree most of the time. But I found myself listening to a lot of Mark Manson. I don't know if you've listened to him, but he's the guy that wrote The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, basically. It's a great book.
Yeah.
And he was talking about the topic of people who are confident, who come across as confident. And what I found interesting about that is, as someone who struggles from time to time, like we all do, of self-esteem and all that kind of stuff, was that self-esteem didn't actually come into the equation when it came to people who were confident, good leaders. What actually this definition that he had was that they are people that are tolerant and accepting of failure and uncertainty.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. And I absolutely love that, because I feel like now, I thought that I'd get to my age and stage and be completely across everything in my domain. But actually, especially in marketing, you get to a point now, and I think if anyone's not totally uncertain about what's going on, they're not across what's happening. They're not paying attention. So the new skill is just being accepting of a great degree of unknown, but still pushing forward no matter what.
Yeah, it's a cool world in which you can go, you don't necessarily need a college degree anymore. You can learn really rapidly. You can unlearn really rapidly. And I think that's the thing, is that it's just changing so quick, but it always has. And I think if we think this is a new thing, we are kidding ourselves. It is changing fast, and that's probably the only aspect of it. But anyone can learn this right now properly. You just have to invest the time in doing it. And yeah, like I fuck up all the time, and I say to my team, I've dropped the ball, or whatever it might be. And I just want my team to admit when they do as well, and let's learn from stuff. Because at the moment, if we recommend, and I've got a good example where we spent a lot of money with a customer 2 years ago on building something that now, that 2 mil build would probably cost maybe 2 to 300K. And some of the things we built now we can do really easily. So the reality there is, you kind of have to go with, this landscape is changing quickly. So you just have to accept what you've done in the past, and kind of, particularly when you look at those plans that you're talking about, those massive transformational plans that were 5 years. And then I can almost guarantee all of those being ripped up right now, because there's not any chance you can do a 3-year horizon plan right now.
No. I was on a podcast. I was interviewed at a podcast, and they just put it up this week. But the interview was actually way back in November. It's kind of a niche marketing podcast, mostly for younger marketers. And the things I was talking about in AI were absolutely adorable. I was like, oh my God, really? I'm like, is it 6 months? It might be more than 6 months, but it was like,
image, it's amazing. Oh God, videos with, what did you call it? Character consistency. It's so funny.
Yeah, no, I had there's this bit in it which is, I actually blushed when I heard it. But they said, if you haven't gotten into AI, how would you get into AI? Just bearing in mind, this is for people that start their careers. I said, there's this thing called custom GPTs, and I was like, oh, are you serious? Oh no, whoa.
like, honestly, when you think you're behind, and I'm doing a talk at Rev'd in a few weeks, and people do think they're still behind. And if you're in the echo chamber of the no,
Yeah,
then you get in the cycle of always feeling behind. But people are still selling packs of custom GPTs for $10 a month or whatever it might be, right? People
right.
are still in that zone of question and answer with ChatGPT. So
Yeah.
it's like, I know we might feel like we're behind on these things, or that was old, but yeah, it's still cool for some people.
Yeah, yeah. I even look back at old episodes of Slideshow, and I'd look at the things that we're talking about two or 3 years ago, and it seems like a different world. One of the things that is valuable about it is that often when you look at what you predicted and what's actually come about is quite interesting as well. And on the whole, when I think about the guests who've said and myself, I don't think we actually were ambitious enough in what we thought was coming, because in the last 24 months, it's been incredible, really, if you think about it. If you think about
I
GPT-2 and 23 and where we are now, it's unbelievable.
After this, I'll link you to a couple of the videos I did 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah,
And everyone thought we were absolutely mad talking about
yeah,
agents. David, my chief of AI, he spoke on the M2 stage and was talking about just-in-time UI and agents, and everyone almost laughed at him, like, that this is
right.
way out of control. And no one was talking about agents then. Everyone was talking about ChatGPT and artificial intelligence. And we also did a Sharesies podcast, and we were talking about our theory around where this is going to go. And we're not quite there yet in terms of delivering on some of the dreams that we have, and again pushing it out to that one pane of glass and agents that are all knowing, all seeing. But it's pretty close, and I'm excited we want to bring it um, to the forefront, and we're now throwing ourselves into the world of physical AI and robotics, because that is where the inflection point will actually start to come together between the physical and the digital worlds. And talking about sort of the past, I grew up with my favorite show being the Jetsons. And when I worked at Google, we formed this club around predicting the future and getting together over a few wines and going, this is our Jetsons group, and we're all going to kind of muck around with what we think and when it's going to happen. And so you look at the Jetsons, I'm not sure if you've gone back and watched it
Yeah.
recently.
Yes.
It's so much fun to watch. And I'm just like, I was actually going to call our company Jetsons for a while there, so that the new generation don't quite understand what that is.
No. But it's
Right.
yeah, I think a lot about the Jetsons. I think about how they set our expectations wildly high. I'm surprised they don't have a robot butler, right? We're not far now, but I thought by now I'd definitely have a robot butler.
Go and have a look from UniX. Go on YouTube and have a look at that. I'm dying to get over to China to play with some of those robots. But at CES at the beginning of the year, I met probably around, I'd say 50. I've got my photo taken with around 50 different robots, all doing different things. And yeah, flying cars was my one. I was obsessed with flying cars. Or the
Yeah.
ability to get your hair done by just sitting there.
Yeah. Yeah, not such a problem for me, but yeah, yeah, I did do it especially for this. We're just about running out of time, so I'm going to put you on the spot here, and I'm going to ask you, what's the next big thing? What's the thing that you're most excited about at the moment?
I'm excited about being able to be more present. And what I mean by that is, as a mum, as an entrepreneur, I have to spend a lot of time in a number of different digital channels, text message, email, all of that. And I miss a lot because of that. It's not made for the ability to ingest so much information. So I want to be present with my children, I want to be present with my team, and I want the right information served to me at the right time. So a cornerstone of that is what we've built, and why we've built it is to be able to take away a lot of the mental load that we have as humans. The focus there is that if you have the right context and it's delivered to you at the right time, you don't need to have as much of that mental load there, so you can then be present. So that's that, and flying cars.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, I love that idea, because that's actually something that we're not there yet, but the opportunity to lighten the cognitive load is, because the amount of humans are not designed to ingest the amount of information we are over the course of a day and then still, yeah, like you say, be present in their lives and make good decisions and stuff like that. I think Obama had it down to 16 critical decisions he could make in a day.
Wow.
That's why they made it so all his suits matched, so he didn't have to think about what suits, combination of suit and shirt he'd put on each day, because they realized that the optimal amount of decisions that an American president could make was about 16 serious ones a day or something like that.
The things that I have to do, like just organizing school pickup and meetings, things like that, it becomes a lot. And I just think AI gives us the ability to be more human again and to restore us away from all the noisy work, all of the boring work, and to kind of be creative, to be insight driven and connect with one another more. And I think that will enable us to have conversations with our partners when we get home, to play with our kids more. I think it will reduce our workload eventually. I think that we're going to have a bit of a steep hill to climb before that normalizes.
Yeah.
But, and again, there's a whole lot of ethical and money reasons why or why not jobs will be whatever they might be. But I talk often about the fact that in the last 30 years, we've doubled our workload, because in a family, now two people need to work to survive when it used to be one. So we
Yep.
seem to think that this idea of actually job loss is a bad thing. Potentially, if we're having job loss, maybe we can go back to more even standings in a household, potentially,
Yeah.
i.e. 20-hour weeks or one person working, potentially.
That would be amazing. I think one of the things I think about how societies, whenever you get a new process, often this is what I see in AI transformation, is that in the old days you get analog process and digital transformation. Digital transformation would resemble that analog process quite closely.
Yeah.
Um, and what tended to happen is that if there was a constraint made by the manual process, that constraint would remain even though that constraint had gone in the digital transformation, if that makes sense.
Yep.
And so I think that's we're still in that part now where the idea of going to an office 9 to 5 and then coming home wasn't designed for one of you to be not home with the kids. Do you know what I mean? The whole setup was for this kind of two-pronged thing, and yet we took it and then just didn't change it. So I think in the same way, that's the opportunities with all this technology is to, and I actually hadn't thought about that, is the actual opportunities to make things simpler, not more complicated. Because at the moment, I feel like it's more complicated.
I think doing the things humans are good at. Humans aren't meant to be sitting behind a computer, and we've just forced ourselves into this being the case. But now, do you know, I would suggest I can do 90% of my work on my phone now. Most of it is, I don't even really go into my email much anymore, because I can get most of my emails done through my AI. So we're moving more and more into that space where I can go and do a whole lot of things on my coding agent and walk away and then go and do the washing or make myself some lunch and come back, and 4 hours worth of work's been done. It's just a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, especially now, I think of units of time of cups of tea now, because you get Claude doing something and then you're like, oh, I'll go and make a cup of tea, and then you can come back and it's done.
My partner works for me, and the other day we were all in the office having a giggle, and he was like, oh, I'm token maxed. I'm just going to
Oh,
have to go.
yeah.
And he just went out and got a haircut, because he's like, what am I going to do? I'm token max. And I'm like, I'm not giving you any more tokens. Go away.
Yeah, go and get your haircut. Okay,
Yeah.
awesome. Nyssa, it's been amazing. I've enjoyed this so much. I really hope you'll come back and talk to us again. And I'll get your details and obviously put them in the chat and all of that. Not the chat, what's it called? The scripty bit that comes with the video. And if you kind of ideal customer size and problem, what would that be?
Look, our aim is to help customers grow their businesses through whichever means it may be. I think that from our perspective, it's the medium businesses that are looking to really change and replace the way that they do things. They kind of go, yeah, this just isn't working. And whether that be through traditional AI agents or building new go-to-market, like we've been working with an amazing New Zealand company called Reach, and completely rethinking. Yeah, I love Reach too.
Yeah.
But they've recently launched their new AI marketing campaign tool called Becky. They're just completely rethinking the way you can use AI to work with your customers. And there's a lot of different ways across different industries that you can leverage AI. So we push the boundaries around what's possible and really just think about what's really practical to get it in there and out with your customers or with your people.
Yeah, awesome. Big shout out to Struan, who I work with. So yeah, thanks for coming on and look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you so much, Dave.